Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm with Mark Lutens, the founder of Element Athletics. Mark joined our very first Alberta-focused class on fundraising just recently in December 2025, and we are excited to share that Mark raised 100 grand Canadian in his pre-seed round from USeed, University of Calgary's venture capital fund, and they're now preparing for a bigger raise in this fall, the fall of 2025. So over to you, Mark. Tell us about you and how you came up with Element Athletics and what the goal of Element Athletics is.
So Elements Athletics, the problem that was on our mind kind of when we started it was there's actually a massive shortage of referees. Um, so like, yeah, believe it or not, like games are being canceled across the world, but especially in North America in the hundreds and thousands, depending on where you're at. So this massive shortage of referees, it's the biggest problem with like youth sports and participant sports growing. And the reason why referees quit, it's not rocket science. You probably don't have to guess, and excuse my dog. Lots going on here. But it's just because people are really mean to referees. So that's it. Like referee abuse is the number one reason cited for why referees quit. Typically, 80% quit by their second year. So we looked at the problem and we're just like, why is somebody hard on a referee? I mean, there's a lot of reasons. Like some people come in, they've had a bad day at work, the economy stresses them out, politics, they had a fight with their spouse. We couldn't root cause solve why people are hard on referees, but what we do know is that when you create systems of accountability, that you create changes in human behavior. So I approached my business partner Tamara, who's my co-founder, and is the best referee that I know. And I had refereed for several years, and Tamara, University of Calgary athlete, um, standout for the women's basketball team, and a university level official now. And I said, T, I'm thinking about this problem. This is how I'm thinking about it. And she's like, yeah, that's it. Like, we need people to think before they speak. So we created this product. We call it Mic'd Up. And really simply, we put an audio recorder on a referee, and then we track the sounds of the game from the referee's perspective. And then we run that audio through software that looks for incidents of abuse, threats, character assassinations, things of that nature, and create a report for the administrators so that they can detect what's happening and have an accurate assessment of the type of abuse that the referees are really looking at.
And so the ultimate goal of Element Athletics with this mic'd up solution is to what would you say?
The big goal is to improve referee retention by reducing referee abuse.
Yeah. And then ultimately having more youth games go forward and having more organized sports available for people.
Exactly. Like we've heard stories of like youth sports teams that had 12 games in a season and 7 of them weren't officiated because they
Yeah.
couldn't get a referee there.
So tell me about your raise. When did you start preparing for it? When did you kick it off? How long did it take you?
Sure. I mean, honestly, started preparing for it when I started taking your class. I mean, that was, I suppose, when the preparation started and we started thinking about like, hey, how do we want to do this? Reached out to a few early investors in December of 2024. We connected and got our first meeting with USeed, actually right at the end of the year. I think it was December 30th or maybe the 29th. And from there, went through several meetings with them kind of through January. And it kind of around middle of January or middle of February, I should say, um, kind of came to a verbal agreement of, hey, like we think this is a good situation, a good fit. We'd like to propose you to the board. And at that time, UC'd actually suggested to us that they'd be comfortable probably um, being a solo investor with us to kind of help us de-risk the situation and get to revenue generation. We love the idea just because it helped us, not dilute too much too early, and get into a position of strength. And every investor wants to see revenue and traction. So yeah, they presented us to their board. I want to say end of February, and we closed the round end of March.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, pretty textbook time frame, I would say. So that's great. So, but what's non-textbook about your situation is you really just went with one investor, which is unusual for a pre-seed round. Usually there's a few, but it sounded like that was, good enough money to get you guys started and going and in a better position for when you raise in the fall. Was this your first time pitching investors and raising money ever?
First time ever. Yeah, I had never pitched investors prior to this or raised any money prior to this.
Okay, okay, that's amazing. Did you use any resources beyond your ClassRebel training to inform your approach? Like, what else would you recommend to people that's out there that you found helpful?
I think definitely your class was excellent, and in your class you'd recommended Venture Deals by is it Brad Feld and I can't remember the other author, but that I was reading that concurrently after you suggested it, and like that is, I would say, like the resource. Like it really gets into the nitty gritty. I'd also taken another similar course to yours, kind of through another venture capital firm that did a course similar to it. So I'd taken a couple courses and I'd read Venture Deals.
Yeah, and just for the audience, that course was by Valhalla, right? A VC based in Alberta. So
Yeah,
that's another Alberta resource for people.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, Valhalla Capital, they run a boot camp. And then yeah, so that was who I did it through.
Okay, and so when you went to kick off your round, were you prepared with the things we talked about in class? Like, did you have your investor target list ready? Did you have your pitch deck? Did you have a 5-year forecast? Did you have a data room, before your conversation with USeed?
Yeah, we had most of those. We didn't have a data room. We actually did a 3-year forecast instead of a five, just because we were pre-revenue. We felt like the 3-year was just far more relevant, so we went with that, and UC felt comfortable with that. Definitely had the pitch deck ready, although I mean, ready is a relative term as it is constantly evolving. So yeah, we went pitch deck, 3-year forecast, and then the data room we started to get ready, kind of I would say early February, as it became apparent that they were going to get into a due diligence phase.
Yeah, exactly. And usually like we talk about in class, the data room is the last thing investors look at, and they really only look at it if they're serious. So by that time, they'd seen your 3-year forecast, they'd seen your pitch deck, you'd had multiple meetings, and then they were going to go into your data room. Is that roughly how it shook out?
Exactly. Yeah.
And how did you get the intro to USeed? I mean, it can be hard to meet investors and get connections. I know you had a unique situation here.
Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, we were lucky, I think is the right way to say it. Like we applied online, like through their website, and we got a meeting with one of their associates. The asterisk on that is the associate. His name's Brad Andrews, nice guy. I'd suggest he's wonderful. But his son, Brad's son, had actually come home that summer. He was 13 years old and had officiated his first soccer game and came home crying and wanted to quit because parents had been so hard and mean on him. So he's very involved in the soccer community, and anyways, he was really familiar with the problem in the space and saw it, and so he, for that reason, he picked our pitch out, and it also worked really well under their social impact um, investment thesis, which is the fund that they invested with us, because we were able to show, hey, we're doing more than just trying to make money here. We're trying to improve a faction of our culture that really matters to us.
All of a social problem, yeah. So when you were preparing your investor target list, I assume you had more than USeed necessarily
Yep.
on your list.
Yep.
Were you focused on just, Alberta investors, Canadian investors? Did you include US? Like, which way did you go for this one, for your
I
pre-seed?
took I took two lenses, and so the first filter that I created was had to be obviously a pre-seed investor. Specifically, I looked for pre-revenue investors.
Mhm.
So that was the first filter. The second, I also looked for investors who were looking specifically for Alberta or Western Canada startups. And if I went to the US, I did have probably about half my target investor list was American. And I've in that space, I look specifically for investors that were interested in sports tech.
Okay, awesome. Okay, and so with that investor target list that you prepared, is that something you're going to revisit when you kick off your next fall round?
I was actually literally working on it this morning. So yeah, like we're updating it. We're like I would say about two-thirds of it is still relevant and I'll still hit those up and then we're adding to it because it was a little thin. I think like I had at the time when UC kind of gave us the go ahead, I had I think 60 or 65 people on my target investor list.
Yeah.
And we want to get that to 100. So
Yes, you do. Okay, good. Excellent. Okay, that's great. Okay, so you built out a big investor target list. You didn't necessarily need it for your pre-seed round because you got the 100 grand that would help you get started and be helpful for raising the next round. But certainly that's the exact target list that you're going to be using for the bigger round you kick off in the fall, it sounds like. I'd love for people to hear what went well in this round, what you feel like didn't go well, any key learnings or coaching you'd want to impart to the people that are in class, listening to this story.
yeah, I mean, what went well? Like aside from the obvious, like somebody wrote a check. Yeah, I learned like you just get I learned a ton from your course, but then you get like a double dose of learning as you actually go through all the process in terms of what investors are looking for. And I think I learned you don't need to be perfect, but if you're not perfect, you need to be extra strong in something else that's really important to the investor. So,
Mhm.
the other thing, like I think investors say it all the time, and I think there's some skepticism around if it's true, but like at this stage early, like investors really are making bets on the founders. Like if you were to talk to Nick and Brad, who led the deal, um, like they'll tell you like they bet on us because they liked Tamara, my co-founder, and I. Like, and that was it. Like they liked that we had a unique domain expertise. They liked that we were both previous uh, founders and business owners, and then I think in the due diligence process, like that was we dropped everything and just did what they asked us. Like it was like cool. Like they wanted us to have X number of conversations with decision makers. They wanted whatever it was they asked. There was kind of
Mhm.
4 or 5 things that they asked us to do, just help them de-risk it a little bit, and like we just approach that the way we approach everything really, and that like cool, like let's make a plan and let's crush the goal. And so like in that was the one thing that we learned was just yeah, hopefully it's not that thorough of a process with every investor that we go to because we don't have that much time. But like in the early, I think in getting the first few, like they really are betting on the founder, and I think you need to find a way to de-risk it for the investor and show that you're all in and
Mhm.
that you're a good bet as a founder.
Awesome. Okay. And a lot of the time, like in the future, when you raise a round, your lead VC will be the one doing most of the diligence. And anyone that joins the round, they might do some of their own diligence, but I think that, they depend a lot on the reputation of the lead VC and what diligence they have done. So, but I think you'll find that most VCs specifically, not necessarily angels, but VCs, every VC will want to eventually have a look at the data room. I've never dealt with a VC that didn't want to look at that. But yeah, a lot of the diligence onus ends up going to that lead VC. And in this case, it was only UC, so they were doing
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And you see, like, if you were to talk to them, and they'll tell you this too, they're a little bit unique in their due diligence process, like in that, like they are probably a little more thorough. Like they literally give homework assignments.
Okay.
Um, and it, anyways, the advantage to it is every investor who I've talked to since then, like, I mean, we're not actively pitching right now, but you do come across them and you chat. And when you mention that you've got somebody like you see it on the cap table, like it's a respected investor and they're known for doing their due diligence,
Yeah.
which I think will pay dividends
Legitimate.
for us.
You said to me earlier that you found UC helpful as an investor, and that's, you're going to find, and everyone in this class who raises money will find that some investors are more helpful, more sleeves rolled up than others. How has UC been helpful?
I mean, just this morning, I met with a UX designer because we're having kind of some design challenges that we're trying to get through as we prepare for the next version of our product. That was lined up um, by Nick, the partner that led our deal. He said, "Cool, like you need this resource. I have somebody that's this resource." Like he literally connected us with that person. They've made referrals that have led to pilot programs. Like they've literally like done some sales work, legwork for us.
Wow.
Like they've no, like, they've been a true partner, and I know like they're very they'll be really helpful in making introductions here as we get ready to raise this next round. So
Well, that's all the questions that I had for you, Mark. Is there anything else you want to share before we sign off? We appreciate the time with you on this.
well, no, I don't have any like tips or tricks or any suggestions, but I do like I would I suppose reiterate like the value of your program, from somebody like me who had never raised money, was just trying to evaluate, like, is this something that I even can do, want to do? I know so little about it. And like programs like this do make a massive difference for, I think, those of us that maybe didn't grow up in Silicon Valley or don't know or whatever, didn't just have the right connection to put us into this world. Like it provided a bridge so that you could have the confidence to go out and try. And
Awesome.
so like to me that was massive.
Well, sounds like you absolutely nailed it. We'll be following along for your fall raise, and if you don't mind, I'll come back to you in the winter about 1 year post course, and we'll see how your next raise went, and maybe we can talk again.
Sounds great.
Okay, congratulations, Mark, and thanks so much for interviewing with us. This will be helpful for people. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, bro.